All right, what is going on, everybody? This is Matt Rinkey, the founder of Illumination Wealth. I am very excited because I have a world-renowned expert CPA who is the founder of Dark Horse CPAs, located in North County of San Diego, and works with people all over the country. Dark Horse is a comprehensive accounting and tax planning firm that work with individuals, growing entrepreneurs across the country, and they just provide excellent advice, very creative planning and creative strategy, and are intimately involved with all that's been changing due to the CARES Act that has transpired as of late. So very timely interview. Excited to have Chase on here. Chase, welcome.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, anything else that I may have missed that you might want to share a little bit about your background for those that are listening?
Yeah, so specifically with Dark Horse CPAs, we are the CPA to small businesses. That is really our bread and butter, as well as individuals. So we've been, working around the clock, trying to make sure that our clients are in the best position possible to take advantage of all of the stimulus that's being provided, whether, in the form of the Paycheck Protection Program loans or the economic injury disaster loans, tax credits, associated tax deductions, different payment and filing deadlines. I mean, a lot has changed, and there's never been a more important time for small businesses to have, a trusted advisor, leading them through this, because there's just a lot of noise out there. It's a very fluid situation. Things are changing literally by the minute. There's differing guidance even in the same document. I mean, there's SBA Q&As that literally say one thing and then they absolutely say the opposite in the next question, and where does it all land? I mean, we don't always have the answers. We have, a good idea of what they will clarify and, change later on, so part of the value that we're providing, to our clients is, look, this is what's out there right now. However, we have reason to believe it's going to be this way because this is what the law says. This is what the intent of, the law is. However, it currently isn't allowing for, a certain item. So, just making sure that our small business clients are in the best position possible, because obviously they're, some of the most vulnerable businesses out there, many of which, can't survive much more than, a couple of weeks in the absence of revenue. So, just to kind of give you a little bit of a, framework for where I'm at from, a mental standpoint, I'm honestly pretty frustrated, and I say that because as of last night, you may have heard this, the SBA announced they've essentially run out of funds for the P program. And, we all knew this was going to happen. It was a matter of just when it happened. We were hopeful, however, that, we would have had a clear indication of additional appropriations, coming into the program. However, there's currently a fight between Republicans and Democrats in terms of what is going to be added in addition to that. Because there's pretty much bipartisan support for that additional $250 billion of funding for the PPP program. However, there's just other things that have to be agreed upon, and time is of the essence here. So we're pretty frustrated, on behalf of our clients that because of how this whole process was rolled out, it was just very unfair. And it really benefited the people or the businesses who had not only the right relationship, but also the right relationship with the right bank. Because you could have had a solid relationship with a solid bank, and if they weren't well positioned to take advantage of the program, you got left behind.
Yep.
So many banks, are not allowing anyone to apply through them that's not a pre-existing customer. A lot of banks, specified that you had to be not only a deposit customer, but also, have a lending product with them, which further excluded a number of people. Wells Fargo capped their lending at $10 billion. I mean, there was just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock that, just there's nothing you could do about it. It was just the situation, the cards that we were dealt in this situation. So coming at this from a little bit of a point of frustration, because we're doing everything we can with our clients, to make sure that they get this as timely as possible. Having said that, we're confident that the money is going to come in via these additional appropriations. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
And, the silver lining is for probably a number of businesses, quite honestly, that delay could actually work to their benefit, because if they're closed or, only partially open, if they're able to, have that loan origination a little later, and thus that 8-week period a little bit later, they might actually be open, or, at least more open than they currently are, to take advantage of using those dollars productively and not just paying people's salaries to do nothing. So there could be some silver lining there, but right now it's just, it's a little bit of a frustrating place to be, but we're confident that we'll get our clients where we need to go. And one of the things about these, live interviews is that you have distractions from time to time, and I've got my dog knocking on my door right now.
No problem. We will. I didn't get mine to the office today. All good. So for those of your clients that may have received the money or got approved and will be getting the money, what successful decisions do they need to be doing now to maximize this, even though their revenue or the demand side for the business might be down? What should they be doing right now for maximizing forgiveness and helping their business get through this period?
Yeah, so there's a number of things you can do. I think from the start, what you really want to do is have proper segregation of funds, so that you're able to show, really that money went to a very specific account, which hopefully is a payroll account, because that's what the majority of what you'll be using this loan is for. So having that money go straight into that payroll account, using it to run your payroll, as well as, there's rent as well as utilities that are included in what you can get forgiven for. So that's up to 25%. So, you want to make sure that you have a firm understanding of exactly what your 8-week period is, because that's going to be from loan origination to 8 weeks beyond that. And they're going to be looking at the check dates, that you ran via payroll in that 8-week period. So you want to make sure that you didn't, maybe run a payroll a day before your loan origination period or a day after the 8-week period. You want to make sure that you're dialed in on those fronts. You also want to make sure that you understand, that when you annualize anyone's pay, anything that exceeds $100,000 is not going to qualify for loan forgiveness. However, retirement contributions, payments towards healthcare, that can go above that $100,000 mark without any negative repercussions in terms of loan forgiveness. So being strategic about exactly how that's going to work. You want to make sure, obviously, that your head count is where it needs to be, because if your head count is lower during that 8-week period than it was during, there's a couple different ways to look at the past as a comparison period. But if whatever that comparison period is, if your head count's down, then you can have a exclusion of the amount that you can be forgiven for. So you want to make sure, to the extent that you can, that you're able to rehire if you've let people off or laid people off, which, brings about other issues. I know that we've talked about this, somewhat in passing, but, you might be, as an employer, in a position where you're trying to rehire your employees back so that you can get this loan forgiveness to the program. And they might say, well, I'm making more money on unemployment, so thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Which, the worst case scenario there is that, you don't get all of the loan forgiven. And if that were to happen, the benefit here is that we're talking about 1% interest, payments deferred for 6 months, and then payable over 2 years. So I think for most people, whatever they're not able to be forgiven for is still going to be a relatively small burden and one that's deferred, to be honest.
And what do you think about this, knowing that companies have let go of employees and some of the demand side of their business may not be there, whether it's a restaurant and they let go of a lot of employees, or a medical facility that is not having the same patient volume? Could they hire somebody in a different industry to help them shore up? Let's say they need a marketing person or a PR person. Could they use some of those funds to hire a different type of, employee that might help solidify their business that they weren't necessarily had on payroll in the past, but could help them help their business and help employ people?
Right. And that goes to kind of a larger point here, that there's not going to be any specific, identification of the exact same people needing to be the people, that gets your head count above a certain level. These can be totally different people than you had employed, in your comparison period. So they're just really looking at full-time equivalents in terms of how they're defining headcount, and, who those people are doesn't matter. So, to that question about, potentially hiring on some people in some different areas that you didn't have previously. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely a way to make sure that, you are maximizing this loan forgiveness. I mean, really what you want to be thinking about as a business owner is, this money is free money to a certain extent in terms of what you get forgiven for. However, you want to actually maximize that dollar, even if it is a quote unquote free dollar, because you don't want to just be paying salaries to pay them. You want to do something that's going to push your business forward. So you want to be mindful about, just how you're using those dollars, because, even though it's, going to be a tax-free, forgiveness of that loan money, and it's going to essentially be free dollars, there's a unprecedented opportunity to really move your business forward, not just in this regard, but in many regards. It's really the businesses that are, keeping their head on their shoulders, observing the landscape, looking for opportunities, pivoting their offering, to be relevant in today's context. That those are the businesses that are going to thrive and be in a better position than they were coming into this, and I would say even further than that, once we come out of this shutdown, there's going to be a period of time where things are not normal. There's some, stair-step version back into normal life. But even when we're at quote unquote normal life, this is going to have societal changes packed into it that, is really going to change, the business landscape for a lot of industries, and so if you're not positioning yourself now to be relevant for what that new reality looks like, you're going to get left behind.
Absolutely. And you were talking a little bit about how some of your clients or businesses might be positioned to come out of this well. Looking at the business owners that you consult and advise, you mentioned initially how, some might not have the funds for the next 2 weeks. What do you notice inside of the companies and business owners that you work with, the ones that are prepared for this? What have they done differently versus the ones that might not only be able to last a couple weeks until they have to turn the lights out? Like, what are some of those key fundamental differences?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would first start off with, addressing that question by saying, no one was prepared for a situation like this.
Sure.
From a biz ops standpoint, or, pivoting your offering. I mean, no one had this on their radar. However, there are businesses that were in a much more secure position to be able to withstand the storm. So liquidity, cash is absolutely king. So companies that had access to cash, whether that was cash reserves that they had either, in their business or otherwise, maybe in a personal account, or, access to lines of credit, those sorts of things that, can weather that storm and provide some insulation. Those are the companies that are, much better set up than the ones who only had a very short supply of cash and had no other access to lending facilities. Because what we've seen here is that while all of this stimulus is great, it's very delayed, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about people just now this week on the individual front getting their stimulus payments, assuming they had their direct deposit account, information readily available for the IRS. We're just now seeing companies get their emergency EIDL grant dollars for many businesses that came in, I believe it was on Tuesday, which ended up being $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000, which was never stated anywhere. It was kind of just a decision that was made after the fact. So I think that surprised a lot of centers, and self-employed folks were not super happy because they only count for one.
Right.
But anyways, the point there being that while, there's a lot of good things coming out of the pipeline, it's still in the pipeline. It's not here. Very few businesses have their triple P money in hand right now. Yeah. So even though they've exhausted $350 billion, it's just in commitments. And where is that money? Where is the EIDL money? It's coming, but it's not here. So, liquidity, the businesses who had that liquidity and the access to cash are the ones that are, just in the best position here.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems to be the case. Now, is there anything out there that, people, I know there was a lot of confusion and things were changing rapidly within these programs. Is there anything that, business owners are misunderstanding, or is there any other programs or benefits out there that are not really being talked about that people should be thinking and looking into right now?
So yeah, I think most business owners know of the EIDL and associated emergency grant, as well as the Triple P program. There's many other options out there that just have much smaller funding. We saw something come through from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce that was grants up to $5,000 if your business is in a qualifying zip code. The city of San Diego did something where I think they did this about 3 weeks ago, where they opened up their applications to a grant fund they had set up. Not a lot of money in that. A lot of businesses obviously left out, but there are those, options and opportunities. I've heard of Facebook is doing something. Google has some options out there to get credits on AdWords. So there are, just a lot of your ancillary programs that are out there that are worth, scanning the horizon for. Some companies are even going the crowdfunding route, to see if they can, generate quote unquote donations to keep their business alive. So, there's some ways to get creative and ways to, look in places where other people aren't. However, a lot of those areas are not huge in terms of funding. So you've got to be very quick, to act on those. But in terms of, I think there is just a lot of general confusion on how, the EIDL and Triple P program work together. There's a lot of nuances there, not all of which are really worth getting into right now. But I think another area too that people are, ignoring is what is available on the tax credit side of things, and or deferral. There's been a number of changes that have happened. One of which was kind of a big deal when it first came out, but kind of got eclipsed then by the CARES Act and the Triple P program. There is a tax credit out there for sick leave and emergency family sick leave as well. That is a direct offset of the tax withholdings that you remit to the government. So, that's a way to get immediate relief. Granted, it's got to be a qualifying situation where your employee is in either self-quarantine or they're caring for children that have their daycare or school closed, which is pretty much uniform across the board right now. So, making sure you're not just getting so blindsided, so, tunnel vision focused on the EIDL and Triple P, because there are opportunities like that, but that's real dollars right now that you're going to save in the form of reduced tax deposits. So, there's that, and there's a host of other different things. There's a payroll tax deferral, which there's some confusion on there because if you are getting a loan via the Triple P, you're not eligible. However, what a lot of people don't realize is that you're able to do that payroll tax deferral up until the date that you are approved for the Triple P program. So if you didn't get in on that first wave, you should be, thinking about deferring those payroll taxes now, because that's going to be an interest-free loan. You'll pay 50% of it at the end of 2021 and the other 50% at the end of 2022. So, it's things like that you don't want to overlook. They're not as sexy or as big of dollars as the EIDL or the Triple P is, but some of these things are a lot more immediate in terms of their relief. And, if you're smart about it, it doesn't always conflict with eligibility for those loan programs.
Absolutely. And I think this just all speaks to the fact that there's a lot going on. Business owners have to be putting out fires and addressing things and pivoting inside their business. They need to have resources who are staying up to date like yourself to know all of the nuances of these tax changes, because it's going to impact their ability to grow out of this. And so, yeah, those are great things. And now kind of taking it back to your own business, you're focused on growing your company and building a business. What have you been doing strategically to navigate your own business and team through this environment?
Yeah, and I think, my answer might not be as technical per se as maybe other accountants would be, but for me, it all comes down to your team. Right now is, unprecedented in many ways, one of which is the opportunity for leadership, because everyone is looking for leadership in this situation, and so as business owners and leaders, the ones of us who can provide that level of confidence, assurance, and really a platform of empowerment for them to be a part of the solution, to be a part of getting through this, to have that mutual buy-in and ownership there. The companies that are able to leverage that are the ones that are, creating the foundation for being able to pivot successfully and to evolve and, come out of this stronger than they were going into it. And what we've seen is, when you have a crisis, you learn things about your employees that you didn't otherwise know. There's a lot of people that will step up in the face of crisis. It will make them engage in ways that they maybe previously didn't. It adds a certain level of purpose that you may not have had in your business prior to it. So to me, that's the breeding ground of where you're going to come up with ideas that are going to move that business forward. So even though it's not a direct, A plus B equals C sort of strategy, it's a bit more intangible. I can't overstate the importance of having your team dialed in. I mean, you can't over communicate at this point. I mean, the more that you're communicating, the better, but outside of having your team dialed in and engage and, marching the right direction, being cognizant and, really keeping an eye out for what's happening out there, because, a lot of things are happening. People are thinking of different innovative ideas, and, there's a lot of innovation happening with people, somewhat twiddling their thumbs. So, things are shifting, consumer demand and what people are looking for is constantly evolving. So you've got to have a good eye on kind of where these trends are developing and how your business can, capitalize on, where things are headed. A small example there is just this morning, my wife sent me an article which was related to hairstylists being able to do appointments where they coached someone to cut the hair of their client, which, no one would have ever thought of that because, it seems almost ludicrous. But I can tell you, as someone who has some really messy hair right now, that I'm probably actually going to have my wife cut my hair. So we're probably going to do that. And, one of our clients is, a massive salon based out of Las Vegas. And, that's going to be something we're, educating our stylists on as a potential to earn some money now, right? Because
absolutely,
you got to be creative. So.
Yep. No, exactly. I mean, I don't have the same haircut problem with you. I got mine down, but my wife cut my son's hair the other day, her first go around at that. And even inside of her business, I mean, they were physical therapy and manual therapists, but now they've gone to be able to do more virtual classes, virtual therapy, but it's a different skill set. There's different technical approaches. It might even be harder because you're having to coach somebody through it versus your muscle memory in learning in new ways. But we've got to be willing to adapt in this environment. And so I appreciate you sharing. One last question for you, somebody who knows numbers on top of finances, but coming out of this, what would you be doing differently within your business or personal finances, seeing how this health and economic crisis has unfolded?
Well, the thing I've been telling my wife a lot is that cash is king. And really what I mean in that regard is that, the people and the businesses that are able to really capitalize in situations of fear and panic are ones that have either cash or assets that are easily convertible to cash, because you might see the opportunity of a lifetime, maybe that was Boeing stock for you when it was down at $90, but if you don't have the cash available to, materialize that feeling or, that knowledge you have that this is a great time to buy. I mean, you're kind of in a straitjacket, right? It's like, okay, I could make money if I had the cash to do this. However, because there's so much uncertainty and I'm, strapped for cash as it is, whatever the situation is, if you don't have the money to make moves, then you get left behind and you end up kicking yourself, right? So, it can be frustrating to have, cash per se, because it's not doing anything, right? But if you have that, or at least, assets that you can turn into cash quickly in a non-fire sale sort of way, that's the sort of resource that you need going into this. If you really want to take advantage of the opportunities out there, and I'm not speaking in a, shameless opportunist sort of way, just, whether it's the stock market or otherwise, when there's panic, stocks are on sale, people know that, but when it comes to where they're going to come up with the money to do that, that's where a lot of people either don't have the stomach to handle it or just don't have, the funding to do so. So for me, this has kind of been, an eye-opening moment on, okay, maybe I shouldn't have all of my money tied up in illiquid assets. Maybe we should have some more liquidity on hand, so that as these opportunities arise, there is the ability to capitalize.
Awesome. No, great share. Great share. I love hearing it from your perspective. That's fantastic. Well, appreciate your time. Appreciate all the knowledge that you've dropped regarding these programs, tax planning opportunities for businesses. We're here to just help people navigate through this. That's the intent of these conversations. And I hope, you watching and listening got something out of this. And so for Chase, how can people find you? Any resources, anything that they need to know to get in touch with you, or how do they track you down?
Yeah, absolutely. So darkhorsecpa.com. That's our website. You can email us info@darkhorsecpa.com. We are very accessible online. Any questions you guys have, we are more than happy to set aside some time to walk you through. It's usually not a quick answer to many questions, so we're doing free initial consultations with all clients during this time, our prospective clients, to make sure that A, they have the information they need, and B, that they're not worried about, trying to fork over money that they may not have during this time. So we're here to be a resource, and the easiest way to get in touch with us is to look us up online.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it again. Look forward to having other conversations as things unfold, and hopefully good times ahead, more good economic times ahead and health times ahead. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.